know who you serve. Serve them well. Right? It's okay to piss off the customers that don't come to your store, don't use your service. Focus on the ones who you can really have an impact on.
Welcome to the Profit Answer Man podcast, where business owners learn to scale their profits and cash flow and work less doing it. You built your business to fulfill your dreams and serve your mission. You're the backbone of America, creating the jobs and opportunities that keep our economy moving. And for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. We're Profit First certified. It's the first baby step in a journey we take our clients on, building cash-rich, margin-strong businesses that don't suck the life out of you. Check out the first 13 episodes of the podcast. It's Mike Michalowicz and my review of each chapter of the Profit First book. Around here, we speak cash flow, profit, and practical execution. No accounting jargon, no fluff. Most accountants, they might help you save on taxes, but they'll crush your cash flow and make you look unprofitable. That's not just a poor decision, it's a liability. We help you focus on what you love. And when we partner together, we become a profit center for your business. If we don't deliver a massive ROI on your investment in us, fire us. Want to see how it all works? Watch the video version on YouTube or head over to ProfitComesFirst.com to grab your free copy of the Profit Blueprint book and start making profit a habit. You built this business to serve your mission and your freedom. Let's make sure it pays you back big. Today's guest is Sri Kaza, a seasoned business leader who went from advising Fortune 500s at McKinsey to championing small businesses on Main Street. Here's the question I want you to sit with. Why is it that small business owners, stretched thin, wearing every hat, often have more hidden advantage than billion-dollar corporations? Sri's career is proof. After earning his stripes at PwC and McKinsey, he held executive roles at Viking Cruises, and he founded Talikta to help small businesses hire smarter and led Tax Credit Co. in securing incentives for thousands of entrepreneurs. Most recently, as CEO of Forwardline Financial, he scaled and sold to private equity lender before turning his full attention to empowering small business owners like you. In his book, Unconventional, he breaks down why playing by big company rules will hold you back and how embracing the underdog principles can help you win. We're going to show you how, as an underdog, you can turn that into your winning advantage to beat those large corporations. Let's meet our guest and learn how. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Sri Kaza. It's great to have you join us today.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business experiences?
Sure. Kind of had a wide range of experiences, but big portion of my time was at McKinsey. I was 10 years at McKinsey, and I left there as a partner in the firm. And for the most part, I think 15 years of my career is spent with Fortune 500s, working on big problems, making profitable decisions or profitable companies be even more profitable. And after I left McKinsey, I shifted into entrepreneurship, either with companies that were private equity backed where I had an entrepreneurial role or even started my own business. And in those roles, I focused on small businesses and helping with small businesses. 3 different roles in total working with small businesses. One was helping them optimize tax credits. Another one was helping them with the hiring funnel. It was a talent analytics program. And then finally, lending, small business lending. And so in all 3 of those, I really learned about how small business owners operate and a lot of the challenges they face. And I personally learned how to look at the world from their perspective. And that was very eye-opening for me. And it's given me an opportunity to go share, hey, this is what I learned at McKinsey. And it turns out it might apply, but you gotta use it very differently to make it work for your business.
Quick question. You said you work for big businesses and you help them with profit. Do a lot of big businesses struggle with profit too? Because I know small ones do.
Wonderful question. Yeah, I think it's about expectation, and every big business struggles with expectation. So yes, they may be producing profit, but when I go into some business, they've been producing a certain amount of profit or expecting to produce a certain amount of profit, and whoever owns the stock at the moment bought that stock because they thought there was going to be more profit and more growth. And yeah, it's a struggle. Like as a third party looking at these companies trying to squeeze money out of things that like, hey, you've already made enough off of this. What most people don't realize or sympathize with, nor should they realize or sympathize with, is that last investor in is sitting there saying, wait, I gave you money and you're not giving me back what it's worth. So when you put yourself in the seat of the CEO, there's a lot of pressure on him to deliver something that's greater than what he was delivering last week. Every single week, every single quarter, there's that pressure.
The never-ending game of more.
Exactly right. That's right.
So what were the eye-opening things you saw when you started working with small businesses and the way they look at things?
Well, one of the first things that I realized was the small businesses just don't have the luxury of time and resources to solve their problems. And, one of my favorite sayings about the small business owner is not only are they the CEO of their business, they're also the head of HR, they're also the head of marketing, and they're also the janitor. All these different roles, there's just not people around to go and pick them up. So they've got to do all of them. And that makes them vulnerable to getting busy with things that are low value. That makes them vulnerable to ignoring problems that are difficult to solve. And that makes them kind of low capacity to take on new and exciting growth vectors in the company. So when I was working closely with my sales teams in different contexts, one of the first things I had to go and realize myself and then help them kind of get around to it is you have to take the perspective of the owner when you're having that conversation. You have to think about the problems from their viewpoint first and foremost. And to me, it was pretty eye-opening because, as a McKinsey consultant, I was a luxury to that CEO who brought us in to go solve the problem. He already knew what he wanted, he had a budget for it. He's going to come in and get somebody who can solve that problem and take care of it for him. And here, small business owners can't afford any of those luxuries. They got to solve it themselves. And, what we found, if you're not working closely with them, what you find is that they're not going to even bother solving the problem. They're going to ignore it.
Yeah, they ignore the financial one a lot, which is why they get into more trouble.
That's right. That's right. So I ended up in the lending businesses. You listen to their problems all the time. You're like, okay, if you just got well-placed investments, right? Invest in your business in the right way, you could be off and running and escape a lot of the problems that you're on. But a lot of times it's not even something people are considering. It's like, oh no, I don't want to go take on debt. I don't want to go and, take up more work to solve that because I think I'm going to dig my way out of this hole. And that's just, it hurts to hear it. But hopefully if you listen to the individual and you talk to them about what they're really trying to accomplish, you help them see that there's a path.
The only way to dig yourself out of a hole is to end up at the other side of the planet. And that takes a crap ton of work.
That's right. That's right.
It's a lot easier to climb your way out of the hole. And if you got a ladder, it's even easiger.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you've got a little lift.
Right? Like you got to explain to like one of my openers that say, hey, you find this guy in a hole. And he keeps telling you he's too busy digging to listen to your, hey, I've got a ladder for you. Like, I've got this ladder. I'm over here. It's going to cost a couple of bucks, but like, take it. You'll be out of the hole. And they're just too busy digging because they think they're going to get to China before they have to go spend the $2 on the ladder. And it's tough because if you look at it from their perspective, they think they have a solution. They think they've got it under control. But just, look up and you'll see you're going in the right direction.
It's very true. So you wrote the book Unconventional. Let's talk a little bit about that. There's a lot of good principles in there. One of them was the underdog principle. So can you explain what that was?
Yeah, sure. Look, when I got into writing this, I had a very different opinion on who should survive and who shouldn't when I looked at small business. It was, if you're following discipline practices, you're making the right strategic choices, if you're pricing at your full value, you should be successful and resilient. And businesses that don't seem to stick with the pure economics really would be the ones that struggle. And I don't know that that's totally wrong. So I don't want to say, hey, look, ignore strategy. What I want to say is I saw resilience in businesses that clung to, I'm an underdog and I need to stick to why I believe in myself. And in some cases, it didn't make sense to me until I really saw with my own eyes what these businesses were doing. But those three principles under the underdog principles are the principles of positioning, proximity, and purpose. So when I talk about positioning, some people will tell you, look, if you focus only on a subset of your customers and you don't try to please everybody, you're not going to grow, you're not going to go have a thriving business. But the positioning principle here is know who you serve. Serve them well. Right? It's okay to piss off the customers that don't come to your store, don't use your service. Focus on the ones who you can really have an impact on. That's what you see with a lot of these guys, like those CEOs who are constantly under pressure. You see them chasing every last customer because they have to. A small business doesn't have to. In fact, a small business has the luxury of focus and putting their attention on the customer they care about. You see this then materialize in loyal customers who say, wow, what this one business offers me, I can't get anywhere else. There's nobody like this one business. But it may not be the entire country or the entire state or even the entire town that business is in, but it's a set of customers who say, this business is critical and important to me. So I'm going to support them when they're in trouble. The next principle is proximity. Here, what we're talking about is not just being close to your customers and knowing what they care about, but that proximity to your customers is an advantage that you have in every decision that you make. Go back to that CEO. He's got to get a survey from marketing. Somebody's got to write that survey, generate the data, bring it up to him. 2 months after somebody thought about what the questions should be, he's got answers to a whole bunch of questions that are like multiple choice answers. And now he'll know a little bit, some hard data about what customers will do if they're asked the right question. The CEO and head of marketing and customer care rep, who is the small business owner, all in one, has that closeness and understanding of his customer in his head. That customer needs to be consulted on decisions. How does it affect my customer? How does it change their experience? So businesses that think about their customer in their decision making, especially the business owners who do that, they demonstrate real resilience and loyalty. So you have customers now who expect that the business is going to serve their needs, and the business thinks about their needs when they make their changes. Right? It really matters when there's turbulence on the horizon and changes need to be put in place. If you're thinking about your customers, you can make those changes faster than any big business because you already know the answer to the survey. You don't have to come up with the questions. All right. And the final principle in the underdog principles is purpose. Purpose is in addition to profit. I don't want to suggest that businesses should be run without profit in mind. Businesses are for-profit institutions. Even the nonprofit is just a tax status. You do need to run the business as if there's margins there. But purpose is what you need to get through the tough times. Purpose is what you need to align people behind you when you're still not achieving what you want to achieve as a business. You're in it for more than just dollars. I'll tell any small business owner that, maybe you're not trying to save the world, but if you're trying to take care of your family, you're trying to be your own boss, that's good enough as a purpose. Be aware of that purpose. Be conscious of the purpose that you serve when you make your decisions. It gives you the freedom to trade off profit versus purpose. And those trade-offs can be pretty powerful. I know a number of small business owners who will chase a lot of different things to a point where they get to exhaustion, when it was never their intent to spend half of their time away from their family. It was their intent to take care of their family. So think about what you're doing with your time and think about what you're doing, where you're taking your business, and use that. Because those three principles, when you see people incorporate that into their thinking, into their decision making, you end up with much more resilient businesses that can handle shock or challenges.
And I think of this as the part where we talk about working on your business instead of in your business. And when you have let's call it a guiding light or a North Star, or those principles, decision-making becomes easier,
Absolutely.
right? A lot of other things just happen because of that. And if you're really good at it and your purpose is beyond just giving yourself a little freedom and some money, which not bad. If you've got a bigger purpose, though, you will attract the right kinds of employees too, because people want to be part of that bigger purpose as well. And that's kind of changing generationally. You're hearing that much more. People want to have, let's call it, meaningful jobs. And it's that they're doing something meaningful in what they're delivering.
You want that purpose kind of not on some piece of paper or on a corporate memo. You want it kind of in how you live your business, and your employees will pick that up, right? It's called role modeling. Like, you think the purpose is you want to introduce a particular cuisine into the neighborhood or into the world, and you're passionate about it, you love it, and you think it's fantastic. Guess what? You're only going to have employees, one way or another, you're only going to have employees who agree with you, right? Your employees will feel your passion for it. And then if they appreciate that passion because they also love the food, they'll bring that same love to the customers, right? They'll carry on your mission because they want to be part of it.
And if there's a cook who also happens to like that kind of cuisine, he's going to say, I want to work over there because then I get to make what I love and I get to play and I get to try new things. And so it creates that. Money is one of the big problems that businesses have. The second one, and I don't know which one is ahead, is people. If I could just get people to do what I want, it would be easy. What you talk about is finding people who have skills and then build a job around them. And I'm going to struggle with this one a little because, yes, they need to have skills. And yes, I agree with building a job around them. But I also want to make sure they fit and they have the values and the culture that you espouse as well. Because if they don't, we call people with lots of skill and no good cultural fit terrorists because they hold you hostage. So I just want to bring that out, but let's talk about that concept.
Yeah, it was one of the case studies I learned. I think it's called job fitting or job crafting, I think is the term. It was one of the case studies I had with a bookstore owner. He went on a level that I think is a bit extreme for most of your listeners, but I think it's a really good example of job crafting. His bookstore wasn't just for selling books. He had a purpose of supporting the autistic community. And one of the things that he wanted to commit to was he was going to hire individuals with severe autism and train them to do something in his bookstore. And that's where he learned the job crafting technique is you go say, hey, look, this person, maybe they're not great at talking or maybe they're not great at organizing books, but I'm going to find something that they're passionate about, that they like, and then I'll figure out the job that I can get them in. And, we'll flex wherever we can flex. But I want people on the same mission. So he put, as you just put it, cultural fit and mission first and found ways to make it work. Of course, he had other talents that he was able to bring in who loved the mission, were willing to work with and work with him on the mission, but then also could fit whatever they could do. Anytime he found somebody who did feel mission oriented, he'd then go look for that next job. So he was telling me about social media coordinator or greeter type of role in the store, a number of different roles that he could figure out how to make work because they bought in on the mission. But does that make sense for everybody? Sometimes people are sitting there saying, well, look, I could do that, but I have a 4-hour-a-week job for somebody. So no, it's not going to work for me. You do have to go think about values and fit first. But you can also start to think about your platform as something that one of the things you're contributing is a stable job to the local economy. I'm creating an opportunity for young people. If you're looking at hiring in young and letting them kind of graduate something else, skill development. But you will want to go in and factor in how you're building your team, what you're giving them back, what opportunities you're creating for them as part of your mission too. Because it's not always about just yourself. As most business owners know, there's a lot of work to keep your employees happy and keep them busy and productive.
That it is. You have to figure out what works for you. But I think you have to look bigger than just skills and again, crafting the job. Like we talk about right people, right seat. And so sometimes the person just might be in the wrong seat. And so that's where you're finding the job that better fits the person because you do like them for the other reasons.
Yeah. I mean, coming from the big business perspective, you design the seat, you get the seat exactly right. And then you just hire people that fit the seat and don't hire anybody who doesn't and pay enough that if somebody's in the seat, they're happy. Yeah, that doesn't work for small business. You just can't. And then, you asked about, where the biggest challenge is. I mean, recruiting is getting harder and harder and harder. And it's odd because, one of the businesses I founded was around talent acquisition and creating tools that can democratize things for small businesses. But I think what's happened is it's almost gotten a little bit perverted by the users, the employers that are out there harvesting tons and tons of resumes, harvesting clicks, and then offering jobs to 1 to 2 out of thousands that go through the application process. So what they're doing is they're creating ghosts of candidates. They're creating expectations within job applicants that there's nobody interested in their talent or their talent. And so now if you're a small business who goes through one of these big platforms, half of the people that you like ghost you because they're like, they're either taken already by somebody else or they don't even think you're real because everybody else isn't real. And then the people who are applying actually don't apply nearly to as many of the smaller businesses because there's no data or history and they're not getting matched very well. I hate to say, I think it's time for people to start to go back to some more traditional means of recruitment, but I think folks I've talked to who struggle with using big platforms say, okay, I can't get people who will stick around or I can't find this. They may want to go back to the original, hey, who's in your network? Who do you know? Who are people? Who are your friends? Or who are your suppliers or vendors? And go work through channels that you know, right? That personal trust goes a long way, especially when everything's become digitized.
It does. And today, those digital platforms have gotten extremely expensive.
Yeah.
And so it's, they are stretched for dollars. And if you don't have to pay because you used relationships, hey, that's a smarter way to do it.
Yep.
One of the other things you talk about in the book is the MUD technique, meaningful, unique, and defensible. So what does that apply to?
So in kind of big corporate consulting, when you're looking to test somebody's differentiation, are you different? There's a lot of ways to be different, but if it doesn't pass the MUD test, it's not going to create value as a company. So this MUD test is you ask now, your differentiation, is it meaningful to people? Is it meaningful to your customers? And usually in a big corporate setting, you can actually go and evaluate the cost. You can evaluate what's the value to the customer. You come up with, yes, my differentiation has actual value to my customers. In a small business setting, when you think about how you're different, you have a broad scope of ways to be different. I often point out that any small business with a retail location, their location itself is a source of differentiation. How meaningful is it is a different question. How does it differentiate you from your competitors? If you've got competitors right across the street and your retail location, then it's not very meaningful. If you're the only one on that corner or only one on that side of town, now all of a sudden it becomes meaningful, right? Because you're close to your customers. Uniqueness on the same side of the coin is if there are others out there who can do the same thing, you may have something meaningful, but if 3 other guys can do that same meaningful thing, you are not going to be able to price for it. Your value is really how much different you are from your nearest neighbor. And then defensible is an interesting one. And it's the one where with big companies, you think about this big moat and like, oh, I've got a big pile of data or I've got all these established customers and nobody else can get them. With the smaller businesses, it's a similar concept, but now because your market, the market that you're meaningful for and unique to is small, the amount of investment it would take to come in and get them might be small, but it's still not worth the amount of customers that you already have. So you will be differentiated because it's the incentive for a large corporation to come after you just isn't there. So a simple example, take two concrete mixers, one concrete mixer on the west side of town, another concrete mixer on the east side of town. They're all serving the construction on the east side or the west side respectively. And the differentiation is quite strong and quite meaningful. It's strong because they're the only ones within 10 miles of the construction sites on the west side. And it's meaningful because the time and the cost to go get that concrete, drive it out, rent the truck, pay the driver, and pay for gas is significant. You won't go to the east side of town if your construction is on the west side of town. You won't go the other way. But is it defensible? Well, I guess somebody else could open up another concrete place right next to in your area. But given your scope and your size, if you have the spot, you've been established, you have the existing customers, and you serve them well, it's very expensive for somebody else to come in and take that business away from you. And it won't be worth the margins that you're making today on the business that you're at. But I ask everyone to go think about their differentiation because that's the element that's central to most of the rest of your business. And loyalty, it's the center to loyalty. It's the center to your customer relationships. It's the center to your pricing. And if you can establish and be clear to yourself about what your positioning is, what that differentiation is, and be confident that it's defensible, that gives you the option to go do a lot of the other things that will drive profit and growth for your business.
A lot of times what I find is what they come up for these characteristics are boring. Or they're like, it's like, so what? Like they all, in other words, they all say the same exact thing.
Yep.
And so it's not differentiated. It's not unique and it's not meaningful.
Yeah.
And so I think you really have to think about this and be clear about it, but not just say what everybody else is saying, because I think that happens a lot. And
it does. I used flavor as an example earlier about positioning because flavor is unique, right? And the owner's personality, when it's done well, actually may come out as a flavor. But you can't decide that for yourself, saying, I have a flavor. You've got to be able to talk to your own customers and ask sometimes a tough question. Why'd you pick me over the other guy? Right? You got to know. And honestly, in most of the work I've done, what people hear is, well, I was the first one, or I was the one that was the most convenient. I was the easiest one to work with. And you know what? That's not terrible. If your differentiation is you're the easiest one to find, or, you were the one in the neighborhood, that's great. Embrace it.
But speaking to that, and I think a lot of small businesses don't realize this, if somebody needs something and they start picking up the phone and making phone calls, the person who actually answers the phone and talks to them quickest, that speed is a differentiator. If everyone else is taking a message or not answering the phone, you win.
Oh my gosh. Right?
Yes.
If you think about it from that customer journey perspective, they got 4 phone numbers. They call the first one, they call the second one, and if the second one answers, they're not bothering with 3 and 4, right?
No.
Yeah.
And number 1 lost out.
Yep.
So, I think a lot of times small business owners feel defeated. But yet you talk in the book how small business owners can beat big. So how does small beat big?
Okay. So let's go back to our CEO who is, he's getting paid a lot. So pretend you don't know how much he's getting paid. He's getting beat up constantly. He's got a million different stakeholders to worry about. He's got the board. He's got his employees. He's got activist shareholders. He's got customers and vendors. And, the small business will feel beat up because they've got the same issues. But at the end of the day, they're the business owner. They get to decide what success is. And when you go back and you remind yourself of your purpose, what you're trying to accomplish, and the people that you touch, what you have are relationships, and you have a purpose that you're accomplishing that's your own. That's not the case for the big businesses. They're out there chasing after something that everybody else wants them to chase. You have the independence then to win because you get to set what winning is. And I look at these underdog small businesses who are out there trying to prove other people wrong because I don't know how many small businesses I talk to who say, well, I was doubted, right? Everybody around me didn't think it could work or thought it was a bad idea. To go out and just be able to prove that wrong is a win to begin with. And then looking at it from the perspective of overcoming the odds and winning when the odds are stacked against you, that lets you beat big. But what really lets you beat big is those three principles that the small guys have, the big guys don't. It lets you have a meaningful impact in the lives of your customers and relationships with your customers that, corporations never have. And then fulfilling a purpose that you get to dictate is the purpose of the business.
And that's true. I think small companies have that nimble ability to pivot, to answer quickly, to move quickly, and to make choices that a big business just takes too long to do. And so if you have to compete against a big business, figure out what your strengths are to win against and go position yourself there. It's winnable. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. Or you could go after a segment of clients that they don't want because it's just not in their particular, space. And so you can go win over there left and right.
Yep.
It's up to you. Or you offer something a little bit different that people want that they don't. And that's okay too. But I think that the key is to think about, how do I win at this game? And small businesses consistently over time displace big businesses, right? That's just the way it is. And then they become big businesses.
Yeah, there's a lot
and
of
then
blind
they get
spots.
displaced.
Yeah, that's right.
So one of the things that people really don't necessarily value and we don't put a dollar on and is extremely hard to measure is trust. And yet it can cost a fortune, and it can cause you lost business. It can cause you premium pricing because people trust you. And the same thing for your employees and everybody else. Having a high trust environment where, if you've got a group of people and so-and-so is supposed to do something and they're going to do it, then people are more into rowing the boat the same direction. What have you found?
So in my book, I explore a lot of my favorite frameworks on how to think about business. They apply to everybody. They apply to big businesses and small. One of those frameworks is created by David Meister. It's called the trust equation. I'm a math person. I was an engineer by trade. I hope I don't turn off people by putting something as ambiguous in trust into an equation, but it really helped me think about trust for me. And it's really helpful for small business owners who have a lot of challenges in kind of creating a business and having the credibility to sell their services. So the trust equation, and to keep it simple, is three variables on top of the equation and one variable at the bottom of the denominator of the equation. So the three variables at the top are credibility, reliability, and intimacy. And you multiply them all against each other. So let's say they're from a scale of 0 to 1. So if you're like 100% credible, 100% reliable, and there's 100% intimacy, then the top of your equation is 1, and then at the bottom is self-interest. So self-interest means, how much are you concerned about yourself versus concerned about your customer or whoever it is you're working with. I tell my sales guys the term is commission rep. If the person you're dealing with can smell that all you care about is your commission, you're not getting the sale, right? So this equation, what does it really mean? So credibility is, do you know what you're talking about? Reliability is, are you consistent? Do you show up? Do you deliver the promises that you make? Intimacy is a unique one that most of the people who, when I share this equation with, don't realize what that means and that it's really an important part of trust. But intimacy means I feel like I know you. I feel like I understand you. I feel like I can connect with you. A lot of times, good salespeople, I use sales as an example because they build trust when they do their sales. It's just a matter of, hey, we're from the same town, or we both enjoy the same sports team. It could be a number of things, very low denominator intimacy. And, oh yeah, no, the same kind of person as me because we both like the Yankees. That's a thing. But intimacy is knowing that person is a real person. And then at the bottom, like I mentioned, self-interest. Somebody knows you're worried about yourself and you're not worried about their problem. It's impossible to build trust. So what I see most common in small business owners trying to go build up their business and trying to be successful, they're really worried about their credibility. They're really worried about the reliability. They're putting a lot of time and energy to puff up and show that they can be credible, show that they can be reliable. It's a lot of work to put in there. And that's great. And it's important. And they're very, very important pieces of building trust. But if you ignore that intimacy piece, or worse, you hide the intimacy piece to increase or improve your credibility, you actually are going to damage that trust building. So just a simple example comes personally from my career. As a McKinsey consultant, people think that you know what you're talking about, and people think you know all this has all expertise. But in reality, every time you get to a point where you're talking to a CEO or an executive trying to sell them some very expensive consulting services, the doubts still pop in their head, right? And in my learning and trying to get work sold and getting people to trust me that I can solve their problem, put a lot of energy into explaining why I knew their business really well, why I had all this experience, why I was smart enough to solve their new problem or something different. And it really came down on me in one scenario where I kind of just annoyed the client I was working with by talking about how much I knew as opposed to thinking about their perspective and, more importantly, recognizing that they didn't see me as an equal or somebody that was similar. They saw me as some, Ivy League educated, arrogant snob trying to tell them they didn't know anything. And it can work against you when you're working too hard to be credible or reliable to forget about that human connection. And, for me personally, that was a big learning and work that I've had to do is recognize that, you know what, they'd rather just deal with a person than deal with a robot. And that's why I use this equation a lot when I talk about how do you build trust. Your customers, your clients, or your employees, if you act like you're great because you think that's what they want, you don't act like you're a human who can bleed or who can have challenges or who can have issues, that trust isn't going to be there. You've got to actually be open. You've got to let them know that you're vulnerable too. And that actually is a big element of building and leveraging trust in your relationships.
And that's a big part of it. And I think people don't realize how much it costs because there's no line on the P&L that says trust. There's no number anywhere, but it is tremendous. And you just have to be aware of it and take action and stay on top of it. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in trouble with it. So,
yeah, I recommend everybody think about this and say, hey, do I have that trust? And what are those pieces that I'm missing, right? Where have I invested? What am I trying to do? And what am I not invested in? Right?
That is very, very true. If people would like to get a copy of the book, how do they go about doing that?
Available in bookstores. It's on Amazon. Also, if you want to support small businesses, you can go to bookshop.org and you can buy it on bookshop.org. There, they'll ask you to pick your local bookstore that you want to support, and that local bookstore will be credited the sale instead of Amazon. So, if you're an Amazon subscriber, you got Prime and all that stuff, great. I'm not saying don't go to Amazon, but if you want to support small businesses, Bookshop's great. You can go to my website to get the links for that. My website is just sri-kaza.com, sri-kaza.com.
And we'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Rodney.
Today's conversation is a reminder that small business owners like you don't have to play by big company rules to win. In fact, your ability to focus on the right customers, stay close to their needs, and lead with purpose is what's going to continue to give you the edge. Think about the ladder analogy we discussed. Are you still digging harder in the wrong direction, or are you ready to climb out with a smarter approach? Profit, trust, and resilience all grow when you slow down, look up, and make intentional choices. That's literally what we help our clients do. Be intentional and know where to focus for the least effort to get the maximum result, because that is what it's all about. And as you heard today, you don't need tons of resources. You need to be more resourceful and focus on the bottom line. Thanks for listening to the Profit Answer Man, where we believe more revenue doesn't mean more profit, and the bottom line is what really matters. If you're ready to stop living check to check, take control of your cash flow, and finally get paid what you're worth, we should talk. We work with 7- and 8-figure businesses and well-funded startups. If you're a smaller business, check out the Profit Blueprint program. It's a do-it-yourself solution that also can come with my direct guidance in the same level we give our one-on-one clients. When you're ready for results, book a discovery call. There's a link in the show notes or at profitcomesfirst.com. You'll be speaking and working directly with me. In the meantime, grab your free copy of the Profit Blueprint at profitcomesfirst.com. It's the next step to turning your business into a consistent cash flow generating machine. If you'd like to dig more into leading yourself, your company, and building the ultimate life, listen to my other podcast, Richer Soul, where we cover these topics in great depth. There's a link in the show notes. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.